Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your soul. You are now listening to the Old Paths podcast, hosted by Brother Reggie Paige.
Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Path podcast, aka the OP podcast. And yes, OP is short for overpowered, and that is not because I am overpowered, but it is He, the Most High God, who is overpowered in the good and only sense. Thank you for joining me once again. I am your host, Brother Reggie Paige, and this is episode I Don't Know. And today's topic is called God's and Americans' Foreign Policy. So today I want to talk about war, as well as read you a speech that is most likely not well known of by the average Joe and Sally. Now, if any of y'all have been watching the news, there is a lot of controversy on Americans' involvement with the Israeli and the other Middle Eastern nations feud. I'm not here to go into specifics of what I think about the situation per se. Maybe I'll save that topic for a different time. I pretty much doubt that. But I do want to give my opinion of what America should do when the other nations are at war. What foreign policy should we abide by as an American Union? Before I go any further, please like, subscribe, comment, and share the knowledge with your folks and kinfolks. Now, going back to the main thing, there is a lot of propaganda and agendas that many people fall for. As a Bible-believing Christian follower of Christ, I've seen many of the brethren and sisters just eat up all of that propaganda that the media, the politicians, and just other folks feed us. Now, I will give you a hint of what my opinion is somewhat of the situation out in the Middle East. I do believe that Israel is the promised land that the Most High God gave to the Hebrew people. And I'll keep it there for now. Now, what I am about to say is, I guess, controversial to some believers because I am for American neutrality. Now, to some believers, it may seem that I do not care about Israel. Yes, the same Israel that God used only 300 soldiers to be free from the Midianites because Gideon had faith in God. But why is that opinion of American neutrality so controversial? Because of the propaganda that's being pushed that America has to fight for Israel's agenda. Israel's agenda or America's agenda. And sadly, that's not my political opinion. Honestly, many of our fathers of our past would not want to participate in Israel's war or any foreign war that has nothing to do with us, especially if we weren't provoked, i.e. Pearl Harbor, right? And my thoughts on the military-industrial complex and all of that is not what I really want to talk about, but I really want to talk about is how far we have gotten away from the old paths of our nation's neutrality. See, when I was studying the book of Ezekiel, God showed me something about how he expects a nation to be ran and have peace. In Ezekiel, you have many nations, but the three nations that I want to talk about are Israel, Babylon, and Egypt. For those who know history, Babylon and Egypt were huge empires in their time, just like America is this huge empire today. Now, in Ezekiel's days, Israel, God's people, were rebelling per usual and was about to get judged. Now, one of the sins that God had a problem with was that Israel was making military alliances with nations such as Egypt to fight their wars. In Isaiah chapter 36, verses 4 through 10, it states this: And Rabashakeh said unto them, Say ye now to Hezekiah, Thus saith the great king of Assyria, What confidence is this wherein thou trustest? I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust that thou rebellest against me? Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar? Now, therefore, give pledges, I pray thee, to my master the king of Assyria, and I will give thee 2,000 horses, and thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servant, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? And am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? The Lord said unto me, go up against this land and destroy it. Here we are told from Rabashakeh, and forgive me if I'm saying the name wrong, who was the messenger from the king of Assyria, that they are being destroyed because of multiple reasons. But one of those reasons was that Israel trusted in Pharaoh's army over the Most High. And now they are in this position where they are in treacherous waters because they kind of relied on another nation, but their own and their God to fight their battles. Now, on the surface level, that seems like a nice thing to do. However, this is not a video game, right? This is real life, and in real life, there's complexities to matters like this. I mean, to be honest, even in video games, there's some complexities to it. One of my favorite video games I like to play is called Civilization. One thing I don't do is ally with other nations via the military. I have no problem practicing free trade and open borders and, all that stuff because everyone likes money. And again, if you want to live here, live here. If you don't, get up out of here. However, the times I choose to go to war and drag other nations into my war efforts, whether I win or lose, I create enemies, and they will forever view me until the end of the game as a warmonger. And sometimes it creates so much tension and possible backstabbing and wavering allegiance, all because I chose to put my military faith in others rather than my own and minding my own business in the game. As well as anytime I got taken down as a nation, usually the other nations didn't like me, as well as my military was strong enough, so they just got two other nations, and I just got conquered fairly easily. Nonetheless, going back to scriptures, Israel kind of screwed themselves by allying their trust in Egypt and other nations too, because now you get a little comfortable and less diligent in protecting your own house and maintaining peace. Why less diligent? Because now whoever is Israel's enemies is going to be Egypt's enemies by default. And whoever Egypt's enemies are is going to be Israel's enemies by default, all because they chose to make a military alliance. Now, Israel opened themselves up to this to be used as a tool for Egypt and her agendas as well. And because Egypt is also a huge empire during this time, Israel kind of gave up their freedom and their peace, because if Egypt has a mind to attack them, backstab them, which they end up doing, but to attack them, practically they can wipe them out or something else can happen, right? After Israel made alliances with Egypt's military, when Israel was getting attacked by Babylon and Tyrus and other nations, Israel expected Egypt to come to the rescue. But what ends up happening is Egypt breaks their alliance and doesn't go and fight alongside with their ally. We read this in Jeremiah chapter 37, verse 7. Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, thus shall ye say to the king of Judah that sent you unto me to inquire of me, behold, Pharaoh's army, which is come forth to help you, shall return to Egypt into their own land. So Egypt, the land of the Gentiles, broke their promises. They backstabbed Israel, and tell me, would it have been backstabbing if they would have never made a commitment to fight alongside Israel in the first place? Again, Israel got themselves comfortable. So now their plan A, which was Egypt fighting for them, because Egypt broke their promises with Israel, not only did they put themselves to be viewed as backstabbing allies, also they were judged by Almighty God. And not only did Israel get conquered by Babylon, but Egypt became desolate because of that sin, according to Ezekiel chapter 29. Not only Egypt suffered from making a military pact with the nation and breaking that pact, but Egypt's allies, Ethiopia and some other nations, according to Ezekiel chapter 30, verse 5, was judged because of their alliance and allegiance and affiliation with Egypt. So, what does that tell you? This tells us that it matters to God how you run your nation and how you conduct foreign affairs. If you choose to make all these military allies, and I'm being very specific with that word, military allies, with nations that have other military plans and agendas that may differ from yours, are you not putting yourself in treacherous affairs where your nation can get themselves mixed up in other nations' problems, all because your nation is affiliated militarily with a certain nation, therefore causing potential and unnecessary chaos? For those who care about America like I do, we should ask ourselves this question. Is America supposed to be this worldwide empire that meddles in other nations' military affairs, whether they are in a season of war or a season of peace? God has made America a great and beautiful nation, a nation that is as a large and beautiful magnolia tree exalted above all the trees of the field. God made America and all nations like Egypt and Assyria fair, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied her. But when we put ourselves in positions where we are supposed to act as the world's defender, is that not exalting our branches very, very high above others? Dare I say, over God? You know, America, we have our own battles to worry about on our own land. Yet we want to act as if we are the world's savior and then get mad when, or become self-righteous when other nations backstab us or don't think that America is that great nation, especially culturally speaking. Yet we have the gall to tell other nations and sometimes force other nations how they need to act, right? My favorite term is we need to give them a little democracy, right? There is enough tension and horror in the world. And the best thing we can do to keep a little peace is not to create more tension, which eventually can lead to more horror. For what purpose is it for America to fight Israel's war? For what purpose is it for America to fight any nation's war? God said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But you don't make peace by force. How can we make peace when we are willing to go to war for someone else? And I'm not talking about literally defending your own land that has been attacked. I'm talking about you attacking someone else because they attacked someone that you liked, who all in honesty probably have bloody hands too. Let me give you a even simpler picture of what I mean by this. So many of us probably been in situations like this, right? I have had homeboys who dated contentious women. My homeboy would be on a date with his girl, and his girl gets into a heated argument with another man that she don't like. And instead of apologizing or trying to find peace, the girl grabs her boyfriend, usually my homeboy, and tells him to go fight the guy, get him, baby, right? That she got into the heated argument with. And even though she started it, right? Now, I haven't been in situations like this, but I've been in similar situations where, people are arguing, friends of mine or peers of mine are arguing with each other or arguing with a stranger, and, it's getting very tense. But whenever they try to drag me into the situation, I do not respond with my fist or words of wrath. I tend to speak softly and try to diffuse the whole situation so the people who are beefing can reconcile and have peace and see the errors of their ways. It would have been unwise if I responded with punching someone or fussing someone out because of my loyalty to a contentious person. I will no longer put myself in the situation as a peacemaker or a mediator, but instead put myself as an instigator or a brawler. I mean, sadly, America does this. So my call is for us as Americans to really rethink the old paths. The old paths of scriptures telling us, blessed are the peacemakers. And the old paths of great Americans who advocated for peace even though the whole world was at war. And with that being said, let me segue to this speech that many people who are Americans who want America to be a peaceful nation and have a reputation as peacemakers should read. So let me give you the information. On April 5th of 1917, Representative Claude Kitchin of North Carolina rose and delivered a manly speech in opposition to Woodrow Wilson's call for a declaration of war against Germany. He was one of 5 Southern members of Congress who opposed the war resolution. Kitchin prophetically predicted that if America became involved in the war, America would be forced to make European problems America's problem. And he understood that his opposition would not be well received by the general public, just like my opinion, right? Regardless, Kitchin approached the topic with a firm understanding of a traditional American foreign policy, which is entangling alliances with none, peaceful relations with all. And I'm going to read this speech straight through, so make sure you listen carefully. Mr. Chairman, in view of the many assumptions of loyalty and patriotism on the part of some of those who favor the resolution and insinuations by them of cowardness and disloyalty on the part of those who oppose it, offshoots doubtless of a passionate moment, let me at once remind the House that it takes neither moral nor physical courage to declare a war for others to fight. It is evidence of neither loyalty nor patriotism for one to urge others to get into a war when he knows that he himself is going to keep out. The depth of my sorrow, the intensity of my distress is contemplating the measureless step proposed. God only knows. The right and necessity of this momentous resolution are addressed to the individual judgment of the members of the House. Too grave is the responsibility for anyone to permit another to stand sponsor for his conscience. Impressed with the gravity of the situation, appreciating to the fullest the penalties which a war-mad moment will impose, my conscience and judgment, after mature thought and fervent prayer for rightful guidance, have marked out clearly the path of my duty, and I have made up my mind to walk it if I go barefooted and alone. I have come to the undoubting conclusion that I should vote against this resolution. If I had a single doubt, I would, with profoundest pleasure, resolve it in favor of the view of the administration and of a large majority of my colleagues who have so recently honored me with their confidence. I know that I shall never criticize any member for advocating this resolution. I concede, I feel, that he casts his vote in accordance with sincere conviction. I know, too, that for my vote, I shall be not only criticized, but denounced from one end of the country to the other. The whole yelping pack of detainers and revelers in the nation will at once be set upon my heels. My friends, I cannot leave my children land and riches. I cannot leave them fame, but I can leave them the name of an ancestor who, mattering not the consequences to himself, never dared to hesitate to do his duty as God gave him to see it. Half the civilized world is now a slaughterhouse for human beings. This nation is the last hope of peace on earth, goodwill towards men. I am unwilling for my country by statutory command to pull up the last anchor of peace in the world and extinguish during the long night of a worldwide war the only remaining star of hope for Christendom. I am unwilling by my vote today for this nation to throw away the only remaining compass to which the world can look for guidance in the paths of right and truth, of justice and humanity, and to leave only force and blood to chart hereafter the path of mankind's to tread. By passage of this resolution, we enter the war, and the universe becomes one vast drama of horrors and blood, one boundless stage upon which will play all the evil spirits of earth and hell. All the demons of inhumanity will be let loose for a rampage throughout the world. Whatever be the future, whatever be the rewards or penalties of this nation's step, I shall always believe that we could and ought to have kept out of this war. Every day, every hour for 2 years has violated American rights on the seas. We have persistently protested. She has denied us not only entrance into the ports of the Central Powers, but has closed to us by force the ports of neutrals. She has unlawfully seized our ships and our cargoes. She has rifled our mails. She has declared the war zone sufficiently large to cover all the ports of her enemies. She made the entire North Sea a military area, strewed it with hidden mines, and told the neutral nations of the world to stay out or be blown up. We protested. No American ship was sunk. No American life was destroyed because we submitted and did not go in. We kept out of war. We sacrificed no honor. We surrendered permanently no essential rights. We knew that these acts of Great Britain, though in plain violation of international law and of our rights on the seas, were not aimed at us. They were directed at her enemy. They were inspired by military necessity. Rather than plunge this country into war, we were willing to forego for the time our rights. I approved that course then. I approve it now. Germany declares a war zone sufficiently large to cover the ports of her enemy. She infested with submarines and warns the neutral world to stay out. Though in plain violation of our rights and of international law, we know that these acts are aimed not directly at us, but intended to injure and cripple her enemy, with which she is in a death struggle. We refuse to yield. We refuse to forego our rights for the time. We insist upon going in. In my judgment, we could keep out of the war with Germany as we kept out of the war with Great Britain by keeping our ships and our citizens out of the war zone of Germany as we did out of the war zone of Great Britain. And we would sacrifice no more honor, surrender no more rights in the one case than in the other. Or we could resort to armed neutrality, which the president recently urged and for which I voted on March 1st. But we are told that Germany has destroyed American lives while Great Britain destroyed only property. Great Britain destroyed no American lives because this nation kept her ships and her citizens out of her war zone, which she sold with hidden mines. But are we quite sure that the real reason for war with Germany is the destruction of lives as distinguished from property, that to avenge the killing of innocent Americans and to protect American lives, war become a duty? Mexican bandits raided American towns, shot to death sleeping men, women, and children in their own homes. We did not go to war to avenge these deaths. We sent an armed expedition into Mexico to hunt down and punish the bandits. Away out from the American borders, the soldiers of Carranza of the Mexican government, which we had recognized, met our soldiers, shot the American flag from the hands of an American soldier, shot down to the death of our soldiers, and Carranza, instead of disavowing the dastardly act, defiantly approved and ratified it. Yet, we did not go to war to avenge the destruction of American lives and the insult and assault on the American flag. We were willing to forego our rights rather than plunge this country into war while half the world was in conflagration. I approved that course then. I approve it now. Why can we not? Why should we not forego for the time being the violation of our rights by Germany and do as we did with Great Britain, do as we did with Mexico, and thus save the universe from being warped in the flames of war? I have hoped and prayed that God will forbid our country going into war with another for doing that which perhaps under the same circumstances we ourselves would do. Are we quite sure that in a war with Germany or Japan, if our fleet was bottled up, helpless, and our ships of commerce had been swept from the seas, all our ports closed by the enemy's fleet, imports of a fuel and food and clothing for our people and ammunition for our soldiers were denied, with our very life trembling in the balance, we would not, in the last struggle for existence, strike our enemy with the only weapon of the sea remaining, though in violation of international law? Will one contend that under the circumstances our submarine commanders should permit the landing at the ports of the enemy arms and ammunitions with which to shoot down our brave American boys when they had it in their power to prevent it? Will we demand of our submarine commanders that they give the benefit of the doubt to questions of international law rather than to the safety of our country and the lives of our soldiers? Upon the part of a nation is sometimes necessary and imperative. But here, no invasion is threatened. Not a foot of our territory is demanded or coveted. No essential honor is required to be sacrificed. No fundamental right is asked to be permanently yielded or suspended. No national policy is contested. No part of our sovereignty is questioned. Here, the overt act, ruthless and brutal though it be, is not aimed directly at us. The purpose of the proposed enemy is not our injury, either in property or life. The whole aim and purpose and effort are directed at a powerful enemy with which she is in a life and death struggle. The causes for which we are now asked to declare war could have been given with equal, yea greater force 30 days or 10 days after the first step taken by the German army in its march towards Paris. They existed then. And the country should thoroughly understand that we are asked to declare war not to protect alone American lives and American rights on the high seas. We are to make the cause of Great Britain, France, and Russia, right or wrong, our cause. We are to make their quarrel, right or wrong, our quarrel. We are to help fight out with all the resources in men, money, and credit of the government and its people a difference between the belligerents of Europe to which we were and our other strangers. Nothing in that cause, nothing in that quarrel has or does involve a moral or equitable or material interest in or obligation of our government or our people. To this program, every impulse of patriotism, every sense of right, every feeling of humanity, every sentiment of loyalty, every obligation of duty within me combined in forbidding my consent until the government and its people, through its rightful and constitutional voice, the Congress of the United States, have clearly spoken in the passage of such a resolution as in now before the House. Then and then only will it become the patriotic duty of each member of the House and Senate to merge his individual judgment and conviction into those so declared of his country, as it will become the duty of every American in and out of Congress to make the judgment and conviction of his country thus written into statute, his judgment and conviction. The voice of law will command, and a patriotic duty will demand loyal and earnest and active submission and obedience. Until then, each should have and does have the inherent right, and it is his bounden duty to himself and to truth to vote his conviction. I can conceive of a brave, loyal, devoted son of a father who contemplates a personal difficulty with another, begging and persuading him to refrain, even condemning and protesting in vain against his proposed step. But when the final words is spoken and blows are about to be given, taking off his coat and struggling with all of his soul and might in defense of that father. When this nation, as it doubtless will today, speaks the final word through the Congress, I trust I will be found in relation with my government and my country, emulating the example of that son. And hey, that's just a low-down gospel truth. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed, like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff, share. And remember, the truth shall make you free. May the God of all knowledge have mercy and grace upon you all. Peace.